Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to this webinar organized by the AI Specialist Group of the Hong Kong Computer Society. I'm Albert Wong, the moderator for today's panel. A quick introduction of myself. I'm a partner at the public sector consulting practice of PwC Hong Kong, and also an EXCO member of the AI Specialist Group of Hong Kong Computer Society. We all know that AI has changed the way we live, the way we interact with each other, not only to human, but also to machines, as well as how business has done. And it has a wide range of applications in almost every business sectors, and the implications are no doubt on a massive scale. So this panel discusses how AI innovation is reinventing the insurance industry, as well as the engineering and construction industry. And you will also hear about challenges in nurturing AI talent to support AI growth. So hopefully you can take some insights from this panel discussions and enable you to prepare for the opportunities and challenges presented by the adoption of AI. And today we have three distinguished panelists to share their views on this subject. Andy is currently with Prudential Corporation Asia as the Regional Director of Technology Innovation. And also, he is Director of Professional and Career Development and Conveyor of AI Specialist Group of Hong Kong Computer Society. Welcome, Andy. And Sankar is Associate Director, Regional Digital Services and Products Leader, responsible for leading digital service for Europe in East Asia. And Sankar is also on the board of Director of the Hong Kong Internet of Things Alliance and serving Project Management Institute Hong Kong Chapter Board. Welcome, Sankar. Last but not least, we have Lavine. Lavine is founder and CEO of Accelerate, an AgTech and future of work company headquartered in Hong Kong with regional capabilities, focusing on addressing talent and skill challenges in AI, robotic process automation, software engineering, blockchain, and design across Asia. Welcome, Lavine. So without further ado, maybe we shall start our discussions on the very interesting topic. Maybe let's start with the industry issue. So can you maybe you can share with us some key use cases in your industry, and then to what extent you believe that your industry is ready for disruption by AI. So maybe Andy, you go first.
Okay, thank you, Albert, for the introduction. So the question is whether the industry I work is ready for disruption. So I work in the insurance and finance industry, and yes, these industries are in fact already being disrupted by AI. AI adoption have been happening over the past few years, and COVID-19 kind of accelerated the pace at a even lightning speed. After COVID-19, everything had to be digital. Otherwise, you lose your sales channel with everyone staying at home. There's no more face-to-face meeting between customers and agents or financial consultants. No more traffic to your brick and mortar branches and offices. So if you're not digital, you basically don't exist. However, in the digital world, you must use a lot of AI to make the digital customer journey as frictionless as possible, as well as personalized as possible. So for example, at Prudential, where I work, we have been quite aggressive in using AI for several years. We have been well prepared for COVID-19. End of last year, we deployed our Pulse by Prudential AI app for healthcare. It's free and available in 8 countries and 6 different languages. The app contains lots of AI health-related features. And because of COVID-19, the number of downloads went from 1 million to well over 5 million within a few months. Pulse, our app, has probably the most intelligent AI doctor around, for example, and easy access to doctors through telemedicine, if available in your country. And that's very convenient in COVID-19. The last thing you want to do if you're sick is to go out into the streets and visit a hospital where you might even get sicker. In Malaysia, for example, we have Grab that could pick up your prescription and deliver it right to your home. So it's super convenient. With the app, we support digital sales and virtual sales as well. It has AI face recognition for eKYC. We also use facial analytics to predict your age, gender, BMI, as well as a whole slew of other health and fitness related attributes. We also support multi-party video chat capabilities, so you could talk to a agent, financial consultant via your phone. There's e-signature for purchasing, as well as document sharing. AI is also used for automatic underwriting, personalized pricing, AI claims, AI fraud detection, etc. So you see AI is used throughout the digital journey. We also use AI for digital marketing as well, because in the digital world, you really need the AI to figure out who's in social media and find out who would benefit most from our services. I think AI is really disrupting Hong Kong's FSI for sure. Now, if you look at Hong Kong's new virtual banks and virtual insurance companies, these are born digital. AI is used to replace human processing from day one. So I think I see virtual banks and virtual insurance as a great push for traditional FSIs in Hong Kong to quickly adapt AI ASAP. Thank you, Albert.
Okay, thank you, Andy. It seems that AI has been applied over the whole process, right? Then how about in engineering field, which traditionally is data rich? Sankar.
Yeah, so construction industry has a very unique identity. We are just only better than agriculture in innovation and technology in the world. In spite of all this growth, I'm not sure it is also true right now, because agriculture is far more faster in terms of innovation and technology these days because of the need for the food. But that also actually provides us an opportunity for kind of enhancing the construction tech itself. That's a key opportunity for us. There are a couple of reasons why construction has been actually a bit of lagging behind in spite of all this technology there. There are two reasons. One is the liability. When an engineer signs, he or she is responsible for the outcomes of it. They can go to jail if they proven to be wrong. So that kind of liability puts a huge kind of, you can call it as a pressure of what they want to do. They don't want to be the first one to try anything. They want to make sure that these are proven concepts. These have been trialed in multiple places before they want to put their own signature on it. So that's the first one. And the second one, if you look up into any of the mega infrastructure, build contracts, primarily these are price driven. So people again are very conscious about the price and something they want to try for a first time. And what happens if it doesn't go well according to their need? Then they go to rework. So those are the issues in a construction industry. But the venture capitalists in the last few years have been actually looking into this kind of bureaucratic and the opportunity for doing enhancement. So there have been a lot of VC funds coming into construction tech. So that is actually trying to transform the whole construction tech. A lot of software giants are actually acquiring construction domain expertise so that they can actually create new software into construction tech. So these are kind of invigorating the new technology, the new way of doing things in construction industry actually. So talking about the global population, right now we are close to 8 billion. It's going to go up to 11 billion in a very faster time than all the 2,000 years we have seen before, which means we need a lot of infrastructure, a lot of buildings, but can the world really afford for us to keep creating and constructing continuously? And are you going to get rid of all the forests, all the water around us? And this is where Arab's motto of shaping a sustainable world and shaping a better world. And what we want to do, and we try to apply these kind of digital tech and use of data in our proper processes by doing either automation, trying to create new insights. We are never short of the data. We have too much of data actually. The problem is, how do we even understand the data or make sense of the data or try to arrange the data is the biggest challenge for us. It's not anymore the question of we don't have enough data set. And the complexity comes in the multidisciplinary engineering. Engineering is not just only one discipline. So when you're trying to bring in multidisciplinary engineering into it, how do you correlate them is another point. So within Arab, we're actually applying these kind of digital structural health monitoring in bridges. We are applying these kind of things in seismic modeling. We are applying these things on smart buildings. So there are a lot of new engineering insights that we have been applying on these things. These are, I'll still say that in preliminary stages of engineering tech. I always feel that unlike software guys who are very good sales and marketing, engineers are very conservative. They do things, but they will never talk about it until they are 200% sure about it. Whereas a software team will typically release it to production for doing the bug testing. So that's where in terms of agility, the construction tech is a little bit more slower as compared to other industries.
And Sankar is interesting. One thing is, say, if AI is even, gets to a more mature state, etc., do you think that the liability issue you mentioned will go away?
It won't go away, but the more and more push, hopefully the regulators would actually have a change in mind. Our major problem, even if you talk about Hong Kong, is most of the construction or engineering tech, they will not do anything more than the regulator is asking for. They will just do the bare minimum. They will not go one step ahead because nobody's going to incentivize that for us. So the regulatory authorities have a lot to catch up. They will always have this idea about that's a cool thing, but who's going to be the first guinea pig? It will always come back to that question of trial. But this constant awareness program among the experts and among the industry, like Construction Industry Council, they are trying their best to spread these awareness, but it has to come more and more in this industry to be adapted.
All right. Lavine, from your industry, how do you deal with that issue? Is it ready for disruption?
Fantastic. Such a pleasure to be on this panel, and thank you again for the opportunity. I work in the future of work EdTech industry. I run a company called Accelerate, and we help structure educational programs for governments across Asia, for enterprises in insurance, banking, manufacturing, retail. We basically help build learning programs for these large enterprises and governments to be ready with skills in artificial intelligence and design and blockchain. And then we also do this at the sort of societal level as well, running campuses all over Hong Kong and very soon across Asia that basically take very talented people with a lot of potential, into lifelong learning journeys, give them training so that they can build AI, they can build data science solutions and take ownership of the digital transformation, no matter what field or stage of life they're in. We want to equip them with as much training and mindset in these advanced future of work skills. Short answer, a lot of people don't realize this, but education is the most data mineable industry in the world. It's actually more data mineable than Google and healthcare data because there's just so much data to mine on student profiles. And in our industry, the sort of coming 10 years is both challenging but opportunistic because 800 million people are going to have to face learning new skills, upskilling and reskilling in basically jobs that don't exist in today's world, which is an incredible challenge for governments and enterprises that we're trying to help so that they can become more productive and focus on what's truly they're strong at. When you look at this much data, just like Sankar was saying before, you need to think of very, very high quality data pipelines, data warehousing, and most importantly, application towards things like recommendation engines, kind of the things that drive Netflix, for example, or adaptive learning, bots that understand what skills you have and what skills you need to learn. And we have proprietary teams in-house that are working on being better at that process every day. In our industry, I don't see as much of a push. It would be great to see more innovation and push, especially in the online learning platforms. They're collecting so much data. So we try to pioneer that push with industry leading products, but it is ripe for disruption. Education has been ripe for mega AI disruption for many, many decades now. But I am optimistic with the rise of COVID and all the other things that push for lifelong learning at your convenience. These are definitely way more structured and unstructured data that makes for disruption across the industry a possibility.
It seems that you have to deal with many different types of data, right? So Sankar and also Andy mentioned about a lot of sharing data standard. So how would you deal with that?
What's helped for us is to have a very clear, no matter if we're working with a large insurance firm or a large government program, is to have a very clear three-pronged process, proprietary three-step process, right? Data collection, so that needs to be done very well done by the right people from a data engineering standpoint, data analytics, and then sort of building on insights and recommendations. And we try to just improve at it 1% at a time, have the right people focusing on the right challenges, and to break down the sort of data into instructor data, student data, course data, and then paint with intellectual debate and sort of honest critique where our hypothesis may be proved right and wrong with AI, and most importantly, where we can add as much value as possible to those learners, whether they tend to be from enterprise or government or even individual learners that we work with.
All right. Okay. So maybe we move to next area, next discussions, which personally there are a lot of my clients always ask me is, they say that, well, of course, it would be great to have a staff who are very strong in AI and have very deep industry knowledge. But typically that's too good to be true. So, and then the next question then they ask is, well, is it important to have someone with very strong industry knowledge and, well, good AI understanding? Or should we have someone who have very strong AI knowledge and good industry sense? So I reckon that may be different from industry to industry. So interested to hear your views. Maybe Andy, again, you come first.
Yes, thank you. That was a very interesting question. Definitely you need to be strong in both to succeed. We talk about using AI for digital transformation, and what that really means is that we're using AI to do things differently. Produce or offer product services differently, better, faster, and cheaper. So if you're only good at industry knowledge, it's hard to think out of the box on how to use AI. On the other hand, if you're only good at AI, you would not be able to identify opportunities to innovate. So, obviously it's hard to find. Ideally, you have someone who knows both, but it's ideally, it never occurs. So, what we do, for example, at Prudential, we hold what we call hot houses. And these are really intensive design thinking sessions with the aim of coming up with dozens of new ideas and produce prototypes within, span of 3 to 4 days, and then go live with the best. And what we do is that in these hot houses, we invite both business and AI experts to collaborate, brainstorm, and create new ideas and prototypes, of course. And then we divide people into teams. Each team has a mixture of different stakeholders, different backgrounds, and even colleagues from different countries, because we operate in 15 countries around this region. I think the hot house or design thinking format not only ensure that we produce transformational AI functionality that balances technology with business need, but with having people from different countries, it has features that work across the entire region, considering differences in healthcare needs, differences in culture, as well as differences in regulatory requirements. So I think, in order to get that both, you need to have all the stakeholders together to brainstorm. Mm-hmm. But ideally, everyone should have some background in both sides.
Yeah. So, Sankar, how about in engineering?
Right. I think I agree with Andy that, ideally we would expect both, but we are not in an ideal world. And it's a typical MBA answer that, you say it depends. But in reality, what we have done in Arup is basically we start with the domain experts, because it's just difficult for us to get both best of both worlds in the same place. So we start with the business problem and business definition. And again, we adopt something similar to what Prudential is doing, is bringing in the domain experts from across the globe, along, mixing them with the digital experts, both internal, sometimes external, to add this as catalyst to see what is possible. And those workshops help us to define what are the problems that are most valuable for us to solve. Sometimes we actually, when you have a tech expert, they get inclined towards solving their favorite baby or a favorite baby. That typically happens in everywhere. It's so cool, but it has no value for money, no value for the business. So, and this is where we need the mixture of everybody together. And then the team actually set up a smaller acceleration force to validate this with the client, because it's what we discuss is primarily internal. So we have taken up a few examples. For example, bridges, especially in Europe in the last year, there are several bridges that's actually collapsed. One in Taiwan. And these bridges, we wanted to see like, okay, is there a market for doing a structural health monitoring for bridges as part of the design? The instant question answer comes in that the bridges are designed for 100 years. So you don't need any AI there, you don't need a sensor there, because the bridges will live forever, right? Beyond me and beyond me, beyond everybody. But that kind of things is where you need to bring in multiple experts to discuss that. Even though it can live for 100 years, can it live healthily rather than just dragging it along? So we have been doing this kind of things. The other part is stormwater analytics, stormwater drainage analytics actually, because water is a scarce resource, and you'll be surprised to know that how much of water is being wasted in every city, even a developed economy. So we are trying to develop machine learning analytics. Can we kind of identify the phosphorus mixture into the good water so that this water can be kind of enhanced? So there are a lot of basic problems that is surprisingly very valuable in the real world about your water, about your shelter, about your air. And what Arab is actually trying to do is that define these very, very basic problems that we may not think about, at least in Hong Kong, because it's all granted for us. We don't need to wait for a water in the queue or get an air or something like that. So those are the areas where we actually bring in the domain experts, and we try to get in the digital experts to give a creativity of what is possible. And we are trying to work on understanding plastic pollution on ocean or in the river. So these kind of things are very different problem for us as compared to a traditional business. And this is where we actually using data from satellite, data from drones, data from observatories. So the data is huge, and we are trying to make it make sense with it with the domain experts, and then bring in the kind of digital experts. What we have done, at least within Hong Kong offices, we have trained more than 400 of our engineers in Python programming to different levels though. But it's becoming actually almost a mandatory that it is almost impossible for a digital expert to go and work with every team. Rather, we expect that you can just get on with your own script and you go and do it. So innovation in your own box. That is the model that we are trying to do so that you can have the best of both worlds in the same place.
Yeah, I'm sure engineers can do programming quite well.
They're good in mathematics. Trust me, they can do better programming actually with less bugs.
Yes, and you mentioned about making our world more sustainable. I think every one of us have a part to play to make our whole world more sustainable. And Lavine, how about you? What's your view on the people or the skills required?
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation. As an ed tech company, we've upskilled about 6,000 people in Hong Kong alone. And a lot of what we do is to produce future leaders of tomorrow in software engineering and data science, and also help unleash that sort of talent in organizations that we work with. So we try to blend both elements. When we're training, we produce more data scientists and software engineers in Hong Kong from our retail business than all 8 universities in Hong Kong combined. So we're producing loads of talent, right? And all these talent gets jobs in the top companies, and those top companies we also work with to upskill them. And a big part of what we learned is you can't be so focused on the technology without understanding the core domain knowledge. So we find that the best element is a 3-step process. So we'll break our programs down into some domain contextualization. Let's really understand the problem, right? Why is this a problem? Let's forget AI and technology and RPA and all those words. Let's just focus on the technology, the problem first. And then the second thing is, what are the tools at our disposal, right? It's too often that you want to just throw technologies at problems without really understanding, well, each technology has pros and cons, and each tool or each algorithm when you're deploying artificial intelligence has pros and cons again. So by giving you an assortment of different areas that might solve your problem, we did the domain side first, 33%. The technology side, sort of an immersive breakdown on the implications of using various technology tracks. And then we try and cross-pollinate those so that the solution solves for the human, but also with the technology enablement allows for far greater result for customers, for individuals. And from a learning standpoint, it also creates for well-balanced educational curriculum and enrichment for producing the future workforce of Hong Kong.
Okay, well, at least for insurance and also for Lavine and for Sankar, seems to be a key point is to get the business people working with our AI expert. A follow-up question is, fundamentally, they're different kinds of people, right? So how can you make them work together?
There are no simple answers for those things. It's not that they don't want to work together, but they come from a very different priority. I'll put it that way, because their priority is to run business, to create faster business and move on. Sometimes they like to listen to interesting things, but it's not easy for them to be the first one to trial. And to be fair to them, AI still is an initial stage. As much as we all talk about AI, there are no very few proven AI or explainable AI that people talk about. So this is also the challenge equally, because when we cannot explain, we just say that's AI. And that is, it will take time for people to understand where the AI is and how it can be proven and how it could be really adding value to their business. If we can do that for certain, then definitely I think the business people will be more than happy to take it, because after all, it will help them to make money. But I'm not really sure today if they ask me, and I don't think I can go back with 95% confidence that the AI can change the way you do the business tomorrow. This is a journey, and we need to go together to make those mistakes, and then over the time, it will evolve rather than an answer today. Some people are more interested in trying, but some people maybe not. That's how at least the engineering world works.
Well, that's true. And how about Andy?
You're on mute, Andy.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, no, I agree with Sankar. Is I think the way to get people to really collaborate, work together, is really focus on the challenge at hand. What are the business value we want to bring? And you know, business people, technology people, we know the business that we're in. We know what we need to deliver. We know the value propositions. It's a matter of how do we put ideas, business ideas together, and have AI to be able to contribute to that journey, so that we could do it in like I said, faster, better, and cheaper in a very innovative way. By having people just talk about ideas and having really intense design sessions where we come up with ideas after ideas. We come up with ways that we never thought about before as an individual. And that's what's the value of having people, stakeholders in the same room, breaking it up into the teams, and we make it as a competition, constant presentations, and we leverage off each other's ideas. So, these design thinking sessions really help bring people together, I think.
I think the other thing that could help is the sprints. Instead of looking in, of course, everybody want to look into the sky, but we should also have a right kind of roadmap to the sky.
Yeah,
that's measurable and smaller and tangible.
Yeah. So for Prudential, as part of the design thinking, what we call hot houses, prototyping is an essential part. So we do not just talk about ideas; we actually have to implement prototypes. And very often we have several iterations of a prototype per day. And then for each team, there's probably half a dozen prototypes they develop over the hot house, and then we have 10 teams and 60 different ideas. And then we, again, people improve and leverage off each other's prototype as well. We share the source code. So at the end of the hot house, what we do is, we vote on the prototype that seemed to be best, vote on the 1 or 2, and then have a plan, a very concrete plan to go live within a very short time. Very often it's, within weeks, if not just 1 week.
And Lavine?
As you could probably guess from the name of our organization, Accelerate, we try to move blazing fast every single day. Your question, I think for me, comes down to really meaning and purpose. When we're trying to get people to work together for our organization, and we're inspiring millions of learners and millions of instructors, almost like a platform like an Airbnb or an Uber long term. So when we're doing data engineering efforts or machine learning content recommendation efforts, we try to focus, especially for the talented people leading those teams, as much as possible on the meaning and purpose of what we're doing. We find that when we can attach individuals' personal goals to something much greater, there's this camaraderie, there's this momentum around a shared vision and purpose. And we try to use those as systems and feedback loops. So as you see their growth, the numbers, the impact on society, inspiring millions of people to use AI to create a better future, and you connect that as part of your core values and purpose, then the team works a lot better. Too often when a team has dysfunction, particularly in artificial intelligence efforts, people are lost on what does this all mean, right? We start to compare, my algorithm is 95.9, yours is 95.8. Well, what's the point? And Andy knows what I'm talking about here. What's the point if you're not helping make humanity better, right? So you can be the sort of company that comes in and does your work with AI, or you can be the sort of movement and mission that has a purpose. And I find that 10 out of 10 times, what really boosts morale is to showcase that this effort, this technology could help cancer research, or this, workforce development program for the hospital authority allows them to unlock that benefit. Or even when we work sort of individuals, right? By doing this, by producing more data scientists and software engineers than all 8 universities in Hong Kong combined, we are creating a ripple effect. We're creating the next generation of talent that can go build amazing companies and also contribute to society. So in many ways, we have a moral obligation as an education firm to do good, not just for our customers and our stakeholders and our instructors, but also for our team to feel that. And that, I think, is where we can create a lot of cohesion and move away from individual, personal self-interest goals.
Okay. I'm so glad to hear from all of you to talk about, values, purpose, missions, etc. It actually leads to my next question. Is we all know that AI, we need to develop our people, and is quite an investment into our people. So do you have any advice to offer in terms of investing AI or digital transformation, and how best to measure, quantify, or communicate its success to the people? So Sankar, you have a lot of smile here. So why don't you just go first then?
Yeah, this is a problem for most of the organization, actually, especially in difficult times like COVID, where the business is not going, kind of skyrocketing. Then the first thing comes is people ask like, okay, we have this innovation, digital transformation. What is the benefit? Are we doing anywhere better than 2 years before or 3 years before? So that's always as a question that we need to quantify. But I believe as part of the transformation leads, we shouldn't wait for the management to start measuring. We should measure ourselves. Sometimes it's always good to say that people are a lot more talking about AI. People are more aware of Python or other things. Those are non-tangible. You can say branding, but there has to be some measurable, tangible benefit to the business in order for you to get more momentum within your own organization. And this is where the early wins may not be an AI. I would probably call it a good old days data analytic project. It may not have AI in the day one. It may be a data analytic project, which will become an AI at some point of time when you have structured data and more analytic and more insight. So make sure that we need to have a tangible benefit as mentioned in the transformation program. Otherwise, the transformation program many times it just derail because with the change of the boss, the change of the climate, the definition of transformation will differ from person to person. So it's really important for us to have an objective, measurable benefits stated in our transformation program of what do we want to achieve here.
Mm. And you have quite an extensive application of AI. So how do you convince management to buy in?
Sorry, is that question to me or Andy?
No, to Andy.
Well, fortunately for Prudential where I work, it's it's both top down and bottom up. All the senior management from the CEO Mike Wells of the group, as well as Nick from the CEO of Asia Pacific. They are all behind this. And it's pretty evident. I mean, for this day and age for FSIs, it's not a matter of whether or not you invest in AI. It's how much and how fast. Because if you look at COVID-19, it really helps sort out those that are digital ready and those that are not. And I like to use this quote from Warren Buffett. He said that only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked. And then a lot of companies found, hey, they're quite naked without a digital strategy or AI. And now they realize they have to catch up. So it's not a matter, about the AI investments, how aggressive you are. And Albert, you mentioned about investment into talent development. And that's so true. What we've been doing at Prudential is that we are upskilling everybody in the company on AI and Python programming. I think Eric's doing that as well, but it's an entire company, tens of thousands of people, no matter what function you work in. We are giving them opportunity to learn about AI, what AI is, what AI can do, what AI cannot do, and then give everyone a flavor. What does it mean to use a programming language like Python? And what that talent investment does is that it makes everyone be able to participate and contribute to our AI journey. So when you talk about having people with AI knowledge, and so what that means is that the whole company has some basic AI knowledge. They know what AI is, what are the current use cases, and be able to contribute to that discussion when we talk about AI and when we brainstorm about innovations. So that investment is very important. And I think you also mentioned about measurement of success, and for us, I think the key measurement of success is so there's a lot of business KPIs that you can use, but I think for us the measurement of success is really are we improving customer experience, and to me customer experience is really everything. It represents your brand, your professionalism, the quality of your service, etc., etc. And what that, in order to have good customer experience, you really have to have everything to be intelligent, totally frictionless. You don't want customers waiting with their cell phone, waiting for a reply or waiting for a quote. So no complex processes. Everything has to be streamlined, simplified. And the customer experience also means that we're using AI for hyper personalization, because in digital world, we don't see the person face to face. So we need to use AI to figure out what are the right products for this person at this stage in their life. For example, you don't want to offer breast cancer protection to a man, or baby protection to someone who's not married, right? So I think customer experience is an important KPI. Mm-hmm. And one last thing, you mentioned about investments and KPIs and success factor. So I have this special formula of success that I'm going to share with you. So everyone who's attending, you're lucky. You're going to get my special formula of success for AI. And the formula is awesome CX, awesome customer experience. So awesome CX is equal to DX, which is digital transformation, plus AI. So the formula is, if you want awesome CX, that's equal to DX plus AI. So feel free to use that formula for your next AI project. And please quote me if you do use that formula. Thanks.
So, Andy, it's interesting. In your formula, your AI, is it Andy's intelligence or artificial
No.
All right.
Can I add that the measurement? So recently we are doing a project for enhancing the lifetime of offshore wind farm. So wind farms are already complex, but when you do offshore wind farms, it's much more expensive. So our colleagues said that we could increase the lifetime of the foundation of a wind farm because of our domain expertise and knowledge, which they traditionally do in an Excel sheet. And we've been doing this for the last 20 years. In an Excel sheet, we come with calculations and we do it. So we said, why not we convert your domain expertise knowledge into an AI? And why don't we just put this in the wind turbine, every wind turbine that actually goes out in the market? We said, okay, what's the investment? And what is it going to take us over the next 1.5 years or 2 years? And what is the market size? And how much are we going to create a new revenue and increase the value for our client? So we actually brought in our financial experts to see whether those numbers make sense. And is there a market that this intelligence can really make money out of it? Or is it going to be a fun toy? So, which was proven to be there is a market. And so we started getting on this journey now. We're almost 6 months into the journey now. And similarly, the other example will be facades. Facades are basically the glass or aluminum roof in your building that you will see people actually kind of cleaning your windows suddenly in the IFC in the 70th floor or 80th floor. So we are developing data taxonomy, collecting around the world more than 1 million facade images to understand about how the facades behave in an external environment. And can we just take an image from your mobile phone or thermal cameras such that these machine learning models can understand that this is a glass material and this is actually going to be failing in the next 8 months' time or 12 months' time? We are still in this development journey. We haven't cracked it. I won't say we cracked it, but there are a lot of these initiatives which we believe there is a useful need on sustainable development, not just only to make money, but add value to the client. And that is another way of adding CX. When the customers are investing money, if you're able to save their money better and give them better branding, hopefully we will add the CX there.
Well, definitely. And Lavine, your role is quite interesting because you are the one who actually tried to provide, training, part of your business portfolio. So how do you convince people about benefits or how to quantify success in that case?
Yeah, we run training programs for artificial intelligence for virtually every market leader in Asia across insurance, banking, manufacturing, retail, and increasingly so even in more traditional sectors that are sort of in huge need for mindset and technical capability uplifting. A big part of convincing the ROI is our track record. So we try and make a statement that's quite bold. For every $1 invested with us, you will reap about $30 or 30x in returns on productivity that can be applied to your strategic business objectives. So our mandate is to work very closely with C-suite and sort of key stakeholders of companies. Let's say it's an insurance firm and they want to increase revenue yield for a new product, or a bank that wants to cut down a process. We will customize based on those strategic business objectives and also do our own AI assessments and understanding of where people's skills are and where it should be to hit those business objectives. And we will sort of propose and build workforce development programs that involve their data. So in many ways, as you need to apply said data science algorithm with Python in an insurance firm or a banking firm, we will not only teach you based on that data set exactly what you need to learn, but because we've got a track record for 6,000 students, we've also learned, how to make it super, super engaging, super fun, super practical, right time to use quizzes, right time to use live stream, right time to have an offline project, right time to involve some of the students who are learning, to pitch to stakeholders, kind of mini startup ideas that builds for more ownership. And so many of the people we work with, these are over 3 to 5 year workforce development initiatives that play a pivotal role in that digital transformation and AI application equation, right? You can't grow these functions if you're not growing those people, as Andy rightfully pointed out. And so the ROI on productivity is typically measured by increased P&L, reduced cost, increased sort of customer experience and NPS, and we try to be as objective as possible. And we find that where it makes a true dent and impact on moving forward an AI transformation roadmap from like 5 years to 5 months is really focused upskilling, right? It's one thing to learn Python from Coursera or DataCamp. It's another to apply a specific machine learning recommendation tool and understand the specific algorithm and why it works for a particular insurance product. And as part of that trading, apply it to a real data set that you're already struggling with. So we try to vertically integrate that, and what's really helped is that we're government accredited. So as part of this new RTTP training scheme, all the partners that we work with, it's practically 70% reimbursement on some large training programs. So we've worked very closely, like a lot of virtual banks will work closely with the regulators. We've worked very closely with the regulators in multiple markets across Asia to structure really affordable, high quality, super engaging talent development initiatives for enterprises where the core focus is productivity, engagement, and apply that to the business objective.
Yeah, okay, great. So we actually talk quite a bit about, talents, and also talk a bit about use cases and then organization readiness. So maybe let's look at some questions from our audience. So possibly, why don't we just start with this question is, are there some assets of Hong Kong to become a place attractive enough for talented AI individual compared to Silicon Valley?
I'd be happy to start with a quick answer over there, Stefan. So I started the company, I'm from Hong Kong, and I started the company a few years ago in Hong Kong because I felt so disappointed by the talent and the skills in future of work technologies like AI. Our education systems have let us down. They have not kept up. And part of my initial research, talking to top firms, realized the reason why Silicon Valley is not because they have great co-working spaces like we have. I mean, we have access to investors and markets and opportunity, but it's really the human capital development initiatives in places like Silicon Valley and Shenzhen and Singapore that are an order of magnitude better than Hong Kong. And so our company's sort of sole purpose in Hong Kong was to transform that and turn that on its head. And the best AI individuals want to work with the best AI individuals. So if they didn't exist in Hong Kong, then there's no chance of people to want to be attracted to building game-defining, game-changing, iconic companies in AI. Now that we produce hundreds of AI scientists and data scientists every year, and we're on track to ramp that up to thousands, I think that, in general, if you can increase the quality of supply and the volume of supply, so it's not always this zero-sum game of people poaching each other, but uplifting the entire ecosystem, that, fixing that is one of the key things that will attract more AI entrepreneurs and AI individuals to come here, right? You look at biotech companies, we work with a lot of them in Science Park, and they list out here because of the favorable listing rules, but then they decide to build operations elsewhere because there's no one to hire here, right? Why would they hire here? So when you produce more data science talent that applies genomics research or wet lab research in the right ways, then you start to build a cluster, and that is what we need to do to make Hong Kong a Silicon Valley. We have to invest in talent at the enterprise, government, and individual level, not 10 years from now, not 20 years from now, like now.
Yeah, great. And do you feel the same from the industry perspective, that there is not sufficient AI talent, and it becomes a factor for overseas talent to come to Hong Kong? Andy?
No, I think one of the attractions for Hong Kong is it has the characteristics of creating a rich R&D environment. So if you look at top universities, top 100 universities in the world, outside of Hong Kong, in China, there's 7, but they're scattered around China everywhere. Hong Kong itself has 5 of the world's top 100. That's high concentration for any country, highest concentration for any country, any city in the world. And you look at AI research, in the top 10 AI research universities around the world, Hong Kong has 3 already. So Hong Kong has definitely grown a lot of talent and interest in AI and data science. And you look at all the universities, they have degrees in data science, AI as well, and machine learning. So there's a rich a potential source of talent any startup in Hong Kong could tap into. I think it's the opportunity for them. And another attraction for doing AI in Hong Kong is access to data. I mean, if you look into China as your potential market, with any technology, especially AI, it just explodes like crazy. And when it explodes, you tap into the population, millions or hundreds of millions of user data, and that's required. In order for smart AI, you need data, and I think that's one of the limitations in a lot of countries. But in Hong Kong, we have the luxury of being right next to one of the largest population in the world, and then we can tap into that rich data set. So.
All right, and Sankar?
Yeah, I believe that Hong Kong has always been an entrepreneurial city. So it's more than the tech. We have this entrepreneurism, and it's primarily run by the companies rather than the government. Compared to Singapore, people always try to compare Hong Kong with Singapore. Singapore is a government-led initiative, whereas in Hong Kong everything is people-led initiative. So it has a lot more chances to be successful and grow the ecosystem because we are not bound just within Hong Kong. The second thing is constraints. The need is always the mother of innovation. We have a lot of constraints. Somebody asked another question about what is the most important need for our engineering industry in terms of innovation. Land use is always our biggest problem. We have limited land. We can't be just continuing to construct everywhere to provide opportunities for businesses. So this actually also will mean what is sustainable development for Hong Kong. So innovation and technology it will automatically come through when there is absolute need and you have no choice. Then this will happen. So I think in Hong Kong that will go through. But the other element is AI is not like a mass manufacturing factory. We need to pick our game. We need to pick our battle. Where we are going to play our place. We are a financial hub, so we have a lot more AI in financial fintech. Maybe we will pick up some other industry, which is like we are very genuinely popular for. Our structural and our engineering is much more popular. Back even in 1980, we used to have Jardine House, which is 40 floors. 1980, 40 floors, not many cities around the world can actually talk about it. And it's all Hong Kong, right? So we talk about Zhuhai Bridge, which is no other bridge can compare or compete with Hong Kong's engineering knowledge or pool. So we need to pick our game or where do we want to be specialized for, taking up with those few industries. When they would talk about these few industries, it should be Hong Kong, rather than we are going to be in everywhere. We don't have factories, so I wouldn't go and say an AI in a factory, because then we can't find the talent, because after all, the people will be across the border rather than here to do that. So that is also very important for the government to choose that while we push this technology innovation, we also need to pick and choose where we want to be known for in the world.
Yeah. All right. So we have around 7 more minutes. Let's go with another question and maybe quick response. People, when people are talking about machine learning or AI, people tend to see it more positively. But with the quantum computing here, there may be some additional just like the IT security, right? So maybe you can shed light on the challenges ahead in a specialized area. Maybe one challenge that you see is the key one.
Andy, you want to go first?
Or Andy, or whoever.
Go Sankar, you go ahead.
Okay. I think I'll pick from engineering industry. We are very traditional industry. People don't understand the value of data security or data privacy, because after all, this comes from buildings, engineering machines and equipments, which people think that it is not like human being. But equally today, these data has commercial values. when people are competing against businesses, it's all these data which has huge commercial values, and it's very important for us to protect them and respect them. It's absolutely important, and this needs education at the top management level. Really, it is the responsibility and accountability of the top management to allow enough budget and resources to ensure that these are not just only data from a engineering equipment, but these are your commercial advantage in a long-term perspective. So it is a very important point from, I won't say IT security, it is the data security and the value of the commercial data.
Yeah. And Andy, your company has
definitely following up with Sankar's point is, data is very important. I always tell people security is the major potential problem for AI being used more widely. AI does its learn from data. If the data is corrupted, for example, it will make wrong, potentially hazardous decisions. And besides data is the model that's generated after machine learning. What if someone tampered with the model? And security is also moving forward. It's going to be more important because we have companies working together to form larger ecosystems tapping into other ecosystems. And we have new things, such as federated machine learning, where we share the models, the results of the models across corporations. So security is definitely highly important. Other than security, of course, is the data itself, whether it is correct, whether it is clean, whether it's most importantly is whether it is unbiased. As you see in recent years, having biased data could ruin the reputation for any AI system.
Yes.
It's a good point, Andy. I just want to touch upon the data being correct and clean. When we try to develop model, people develop on somebody else's data. People say it's like, open source data, or you don't know where your data is coming from. And it's okay. When you're poor, nobody's going to bother you. When you become rich, everybody's going to dig into your past. So you had to be absolutely clear on whose data are you developing all these models.
Yes, and depending on how rich you are, right? And Lavine, do you have any insights to share into this area? What are the key challenges that are ahead of your business?
In the field of education, there's a lot of companies have opened up and tried to, especially university level or at the workforce professional level or corporate training companies, there's a lot of companies who are entering this space, rightly so. It's a very exciting opportunity. And it's one thing to try, especially for us, our values and culture, inspire millions of people with education and also inspire them to go solve the world's greatest challenges, whether it's climate change or global warming or cancer research, with those superpowers, right? We see these tools and trainings that we give to societies and governments and enterprises as superpowers. And I think one of the biggest risks is that some bad actors will use that knowledge and tools in ways that don't serve humanity. So AI and ethics, AI and the moral obligation to use this technology correctly, it's very powerful, and it has to be used in a decentralized manner. It should not be centralized or clouded with one particular firm or government having too much power. I think that is really, really important. I also think it's really important, one of the biggest challenges, and this goes against millions of years of evolution, but how do we get people to move away from their natural sort of state, which is in many ways not to want to keep learning and growing? This is a hard thing to do, right? It's hard to get someone on a 10-year lifelong learning platform like ours. That's what we're doing. And the brain isn't necessarily the most excited to go read something about AI and Python on a Saturday morning at 5:30, right? So how do you kind of structure the changing need and urgency to learn these things within fun, engaging, gamified, social learning experiences so that it doesn't feel like a chore, but there's more pride and more purpose, like I mentioned earlier, in wanting to apply this knowledge. So how do you move away from complacency and the desire for mediocrity and mass, I'm talking about mass market, to be able to solve those challenges of lifelong learning? That is a very tricky challenge.
Yes. And it almost the time to finish that. So as a moderator, I have the benefits of asking the last question.
Go for it, Albert.
Yeah, and if there is one thing, just one thing, okay, that an company need to know how to embark on this AI journey, what would it be? So maybe Andy, you come
But
first.
one thing I would say, culture change. It's actually, thousands of things. Culture changes. You have make sure that corporation, everyone in the company has an AI mindset.
All right.
That's very important.
And then nothing?
You can't grow your firm without growing your people. So too often companies don't really want to spend the money to invest in holistic L&D programs, just like Andy said, culture. So knowledge is power, and you really have to, a learning organization is one that's going to win.
All right. Sankar.
I would probably say data, because Andy talked about culture and Lavine talked about knowledge. So the fundamental of knowledge is data, and the knowledge will transform your culture.
All right. Okay. So now it's 1:30 and it's time to finish that webinar. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Andy, Sankar, and Lavine, for joining that webinar. And I also thank you for all the audiences to join that webinar. And hopefully you can take some insights from this panel discussion to help you with your adoption of AI journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Albert. You did great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.